Washington, D.C. must be swept clean. I believe entire neighborhoods probably need to be emptied, need to be bulldozed.
Yesterday, Russian-paid propagandist Benny Johnson was in the new media seat in the White House press briefing room asking a bunch of nonsense questions. And I don't know if this came before or after his question in the White House press briefing room, probably before. But he is calling, one, he is a credible, it's a very gross to even say it, but in Republican circles, he's a credible source of information. It's propaganda, it's lies, it's distraction politics. It is the thing that they despise, which is identity politics. That's all it is. Except he's protecting the identity politics for his group, which is allegedly straight, but white men. White conservative men is who Benny Johnson wants to protect. And in doing so, he feels that if he's going to protect straight white men, that he has to destroy others. And he's calling for not just the displacement of Black Americans, residents, citizens of this country, residents of Washington, D.C., not just the displacement, but ethnic cleansing of these folks. This is not just white supremacy. This is dialed in, fine-tuned, anti-Black propaganda from Benny Johnson. A lot of people aren't going to like to hear it. They don't like it when I talk about white supremacy. It's an alarmist. Not everything's racism. You're right. Not everything is racism. But you know what's racism? Fucking racism. And this is white supremacy on full display here. This first clip is him setting the stage using not even very well-coded dog whistles. White supremacist dog whistles, talking about Western civilization, that we are the cradle of Western civilization, which is the buzzword used by Nazis and in the white power movement to mean white people, European heritage, whites. This is what he's talking about. Watch this as he sets the clip. It's like 30 or 40 seconds, and then we'll move on into the rest of the lies, the hatred, and the bigotry.
DC is a kill box. It is a death trap. It is a lawless hellscape, and it is a scar on the face of our national conscience. Because we as Americans deserve a capital city that is beautiful and safe and that projects the power and the values of Western civilization. We do not deserve the crime-addled, narco-welfare hellscape that DC has become. President Trump is doing God's work by refederalizing DC.
I mean, look, you got to hand it to a guy who packs in all of the racism in such a short clip, right? DC is a kill box. The city I live in, not a kill box, was out having drinks last night past 10 p.m. on U Street, which has notoriously been vilified by white conservatives in this country as, oh my God, it's so dangerous. 14th and U, what would you do? It's remarkable. But DC's a kill box. It's a death trap. It's lawless, a lawless hellscape. It's a scar on the face of our national conscience. And talking about DC being, it projects the power and the values, there it is, of Western civilization. We don't deserve this crime-addled. Maybe I pronounce it wrong when I call it crime-addled. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. All these buzzwords that align themselves to conservative ideology about Black folks. A narco-welfare hellscape. The only thing missing is some reference to a welfare queen, and we're taken all the way back to Ronald Reagan's destruction of the American social fabric. President Trump, and then here he goes. He's initiating the spiritual, otherworldly cult language that Donald Trump is doing God's work. Oh, praise Jesus. Donald Trump. Gets worse in clip 2, and it gets worse in clip 3, by the way. But here, he starts giving an ahistorical, or at the very, even to be fair, the most fair and charitable to his argument, it's an incomplete understanding of Washington, D.C. and the demographics here, and what the history of our country is. He's glossing over so much as while he complains about there being too many black people in Washington, D.C.
What happened to DC, especially during the civil rights period, was that protesters that were bussed up here stayed here. The city was burned to the ground. This happened during massive riots throughout the 60s and 70s. Mass swaths of the city were torched and were never really rebuilt. And so what President Trump is doing is reasserting control of not only our nation's capital, but truly the seat of Western civilization. There's one final little note here that kind of blends outside of the personal.
All of this is just white supremacy. Protesters were bussed here, and then they just never left. He means black folks. And he's talking about the civil rights era, which is just, it's incorrect. Again, he drops Western civilization again. But DC, black people came here pre and post Civil War for opportunities to flee oppression and murder and rape and lynchings from white people in the South. That was when it began. It didn't begin during when protesters, black people, were bussed here to protest. What? It continued with the Great Migration when people fled oppression in the South. And then when the Equal Opportunity Act was passed, the Civil Rights Act, that's when another wave of people felt more comfortable in Washington, D.C. than other places. The federal government in the middle of the last century, right around World War II, ramped up and became something wholly different than it had been in the past. We had the Great Depression. We had World War II where there was a lot of hiring. So people sought opportunity, economic opportunity. Something that you would think conservatives would know something about, since that's what they claim Donald Trump won the first time about. Economic anxiety, not racism, right? Well, Benny Johnson has other ideas. Here, after he stops lying about the history of the United States, he advocates for the wholesale destruction, the razing of, the burning of, the bulldozing, I think is the word he uses, of black neighborhoods in this city to ethnically cleanse Washington, D.C., to change the demographic makeup of the city, and to force out black folks who have lived here for generations. Because I guarantee you, he's not talking about fucking Georgetown when he's talking about bringing a bulldozer to ruin and destroy neighborhoods. He's talking about neighborhoods like Columbia Heights that I lived in for a year when we first moved here. Columbia Heights, even that is not some crime-riddled hellscape or crime-addled, as Benny Johnson says. Watch him here advocate for the ethnic cleansing of Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. is a representation of the work of your forefathers and mine. It is, by every measure, a very beautiful city architecturally. It is a sacred city. It is a sovereign place with the monuments to great men and women who've sacrificed far more than you or I could ever dream for this country. It must be preserved because the peoples of Earth come here by the millions per year in order to witness the success or failures of our systems. And if you are a proud patriot and you love this country and you wish for it to be reflected honorably to the peoples of Earth, then Washington, D.C. must be swept clean. I believe entire neighborhoods probably need to be emptied, need to be bulldozed. I believe that there are places that are so crime-ridden and so infested that you just need to, you're just going to have to crack down. You're going to have to do the job, and you're going to have to get the crime out of Washington. That's my personal experience. Don't believe the bullshit that you hear online from some reporters. Oh, crime's down in D.C. Well, my infant nearly died in a drug fire after mass shootings So no, DC is not safe. And I can tell you this as a matter of fact, it is one of the worst, most racist narco states and welfare states imaginable. In that neighborhood that I would walk every single day, racial epithets were screamed at us, rocks were thrown at us because we were white people. This city is a sunken place. It is an unsafe place. I mean, if that's what happens to me, imagine what happens to somebody who's like visiting here from a foreign country, right? It's totally and wholly unsafe and a scar on the face of our country. And it must be healed. And President Trump is going about that heavy work. So God bless the president.
You know, it's real easy for these ghouls to talk like this, but they never follow through on what it would look like or what do we do with the people who are displaced. Washington, D.C. must be swept clean. I believe entire neighborhoods probably, he couches it, probably need to be emptied, need to be bulldozed. Entire which neighborhoods? Which ones, Benny? You know the city. You used to live here, right? You're an expert on what crime does and doesn't exist. You're an expert on the crime levels now, even though, you know, for you, it's a snapshot in time. Whatever the worst was, that's what it is now. Nothing ever changes. No, nothing's in flux whatsoever. So where do those people go? Which neighborhoods need to be destroyed? And where do they go? Is there going to be relocation assistance from the federal government? Of course not. That would be fraud, waste, and abuse. That would be DEI. I believe there are places that are so crime-ridden and so infested. He's using this language, remember? Vermin and poisoning the blood of our country. These are infested. That you're just going to have to crack down, he says. As a matter of fact, it's one of the worst, most racist narco states and welfare states imaginable. I'm not going to continue. You get it. This is the absolute objective of Republicans, of the Heritage Foundation, the authors and the disseminators of Project 2025. What heritage, pray tell, are they trying to protect? Could it be white heritage? Could it be protect the live? What are the, I don't even know what the 14 words are, but it should be emblazoned on the masthead of the Heritage Foundation. It's neo-Nazi white power propaganda from what they're trying to make a respectable organization. Anyway, this is where we are in America. If you're resistant to talk about white supremacy, if you're resistant to talk about neo-Nazis and the white power movement in the United States, its history, its present, and its future, maybe this isn't the party for you. Maybe this isn't the movement for you. If the word social justice doesn't sit well with you, it's time to re-examine what your priorities are in this country. It's time for you, to the very least, to examine the history of our nation and how this country was built. We were founded on white supremacy. And it's up to each and every one of us to root it out. If anything needs to be cleansed, if a bulldozer needs to be taken to anything, it's the ideology that white people are superior in intellect, in power, in influence, in morality, in ethics, in any way to any other group. I solicit your opinions here and your conversation. Tell me where I'm wrong. I would appreciate it. Comment below. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. I love and appreciate you very much. Please subscribe. It is free to do so. Click the join button below this video on YouTube and become among the soon to be 2 million subscribers. I would appreciate it very much. That's a great way, a free way to support independent media and the truth. Anyway, I love and appreciate you very much. I'll see you next time. Be genuine and take care of one another. Oh, and Benny, go fuck yourself.